Ruby Moore was just trying to survive the night. It was nearly 1 a.m., and the upper floors of the Chandler Grand Hotel had gone silent. The kind of heavy quiet that only comes after a long day of rich people complaining about minibar prices and pillow firmness. Her feet throbbed. Her hair, once tied neatly, had fallen loose from the bun. The navy uniform shirt stuck to her back in places she didn't want to think about. One more sweep to clean and she could clock out. She thought about her little brother Mason, asleep on their worn-out couch back home, and about the text she got earlier that day from the pharmacy. Your refill is ready. Balance $217.39. She didn't have it. Not yet. She glanced at the room number in front of her, Suite 1742, penthouse level. Just wipe the counters, change the linens, check the minibar, her supervisor had said. He's not arriving until morning. That's all she needed. 10 minutes of peace. Inside, the room was everything she expected. Modern, spotless, almost sterile. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the river. She crossed to the bedroom, switching the lamp on low. The king-sized bed looked untouched. Crisp white sheets, 7 pillows, a mattress that probably cost more than her entire student loan debt. Her body ached. I'll just sit for a second, she whispered out loud, more to herself than anything. She perched on the edge of the bed, just to take the pressure off her back, just to breathe. 5 minutes, that's all she needed. She didn't mean to fall asleep. The door opened softly, almost silently. Cole Westbrook stepped inside, dropping his leather duffel beside the doorway. His jaw clenched as he scanned the room. He hated late-night arrivals. His flight from Dallas had been delayed. His meeting in the morning was critical. And now his penthouse wasn't even prepped. He tossed his coat over the chair, loosened his tie, and turned toward the bedroom, then stopped dead. There was someone in the bed. Not a thief, not a guest. A woman in a Navy hotel uniform curled on top of the duvet, shoes still on, chest rising and falling in slow sleep. He blinked once, twice. What the hell? Hey, he said sharply. What are you doing? Ruby shot up, disoriented, heart racing, her eyes locked on his. Tall, sharp-suited, dark-eyed, and furious. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, she gasped. I'm so sorry. Who are you? He demanded, stepping closer. I was just cleaning. They told me you weren't coming until morning. I didn't mean to. You're sleeping in my bed, he said, eyes narrowing. Do you have any idea how this looks? Her voice cracked. I swear, I didn't even realize. I'm sorry. He studied her. Chest rising too fast, eyes red with exhaustion, no makeup, no polish. Not someone sneaking in for thrills, just worn out. Her name tag was crooked. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. I should call security, he muttered, running his hand through his hair. Ruby flinched. Please don't do that. I need this job. I have a younger brother and... Cole paused. He should have been angry. Anyone else would have been, but something about her voice, shaky but holding on, made him hesitate. He exhaled slowly. Just go, he said quietly. Now. She scrambled up, smoothing her shirt, grabbing her cleaning cloth from the bedside table. I'm sorry, she said again, barely above a whisper. As she fled down the hallway, she didn't see the way Cole stared at the imprint she left on the bed, or the way his brow furrowed like something didn't quite make sense. Back in the staff room, Ruby sank onto a bench, face burning. How could I be so stupid? She muttered. Around her, no one asked. No one cared. The other housekeepers were half asleep, scrolling through phones or changing out of uniforms. She sat there in silence, staring at the lemon-scented cloth still in her hand. She was sure she'd be fired by morning. In Suite 1742, Cole stood by the window, glass of whiskey in hand, watching the city lights blur against the glass. Normally, this was the part of the night he liked best. Alone, above everything, too high for the noise to reach him. But tonight, the quiet didn't feel peaceful. It felt off. He kept seeing her face, the panic, the apology, but mostly the exhaustion. He should have called the front desk, made a complaint, demanded better service. But instead, he sat on the edge of the same bed she just left, staring at the pillow. She was just a hotel cleaner, and yet, for the first time in a long time, someone had made him feel something that wasn't about profit, mergers, or press. He didn't know her name, but somehow that made him want to know it even more. Ruby didn't expect to keep her job after what happened, but she showed up the next morning anyway, half convinced security would be waiting with the cardboard box and the signed termination slip. Instead, her supervisor, who never smiled, just handed her a new assignment sheet without looking up. "Penthouse 1742, she said flatly. "Guest requested you." Ruby blinked. "What?" "Don't ask questions. Just don't mess it up." The list shook slightly in Ruby's hand. Why would he request her? She spent the entire elevator ride up rehearsing apologies she didn't believe would land. When she knocked on the door, there was no answer, so she stepped inside slowly, half expecting him to jump out from behind the couch. But the suite was empty, spotless even. She exhaled. Maybe it was a clerical mistake. Maybe someone entered the wrong number. She wiped down the marble counter, fluffed pillows, and left a fresh notepad by the bedside. Right before she stepped out, she noticed something. A cup of hot coffee, untouched, sitting on the glass table near the window, still steaming. And next to it, a sticky note in neat, sharp handwriting. "In case you come early, I figured you might be tired again. C." She stood there frozen. A chill ran down her spine and across her arms. Not from fear, but from something else entirely. Later that week, it happened again. Another request. Suite 1742. This time he was there. Ruby knocked. The door opened before her hand even dropped. Cole Westbrook stood there in a charcoal dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up, holding a phone in one hand and a sandwich in the other. "You're early." "I can come back," she said quickly. "No, come in, please." That was the first time he said please. She stepped inside. The air felt warmer than usual. Jazz played low on the speaker. The lights were dimmed, like someone had tried to make the space feel more like home, less like a $2,000 a night hotel room. "You don't have to do anything today," he said, sitting near the window. "I just wanted to talk." She hesitated. "You want to talk?" "You look at me like I'm just some guy who yelled at you once. I wanted to balance the scale." Ruby wasn't sure what to say to that. She stayed standing, arms crossed loosely. "I still don't understand why you keep requesting me." He shrugged. "Neither do I." There was a pause. Not awkward, not tense, just real. She finally sat, carefully, on the edge of the armchair. "You always work this hard?" he asked. "I don't really have much of a choice." "Your brother?" She nodded. "Mason. He's 10. Asthma. I cover most of his meds. My mom used to help, but she passed last year." He didn't speak right away. Then he said, "I'm sorry." Ruby didn't expect kindness from a man in a $600 shirt. "That's why I work nights," she added softly. "It pays a little more." He leaned back, studying her. "You're not what I expected." She gave a half smile. Neither are you. That was the first time they really looked at each other. Really looked. And something shifted. Not loud, not sudden, but like a wire quietly pulled taut between them. After that, their moments got smaller, but deeper. She found a granola bar on her cart one night with a note that said, "Don't skip dinner, 1742. He left her a book with a ribbon tucked inside, The Alchemist. She returned it a week later with a sticky note that said, "Good story, better ending than mine." Some days they didn't talk at all, just a quick knock, a silent glance, a nod. But the energy was always there, like a current humming beneath the quiet room. Then came the night of the power outage. A storm rolled in fast, lightning snapping over the skyline. Half the hotel lost power, and panic spread among the guests like spilled coffee. Elevators froze, alarms beeped, phones lit up. Ruby was delivering extra blankets when she saw Cole pacing the lobby with his assistant. He looked frustrated, out of place in the chaos, like a man who was always in control but couldn't fix this. She didn't say anything, just walked by. But his voice stopped her. "Hey, Ruby." She turned, surprised he remembered her name. "Yes? You're okay?" She blinked. No one asked her that at work. Not ever. "Yeah, I'm fine." He took a step closer. "You're soaked." "I didn't really have time to stop and, care." He looked at her for a long beat, then shrugged off his coat, a tailored wool thing that probably cost more than her rent, and draped it around her shoulders, without asking. She stiffened. "I don't really have to." "I know," he said quietly, "but I want to." There was that pause again, the invisible moment that neither one of them could explain. She held his gaze. "You're not like I thought you'd be." He smiled just slightly. "Neither are you." In the days that followed, the hotel buzzed with whispers. Staff talked. Guests noticed. Ruby tried to keep her head down, but it was hard when the man from the penthouse kept looking at her like she was the only person in the room. Still, she never let herself hope too much. Not really. He was Cole Westbrook, born into money, built a tech empire by 30, drove a Tesla, ate at places where the menu didn't have prices. He dated women who wore silk like it was cotton and took weekend trips to Europe for fun. She scrubbed bathtubs for a living and split grocery bills on Venmo. But one night, when she was wiping down his bathroom sink, he stood in the doorway, arms folded, and said, "I like when you're here." She looked up. "Why?" He shrugged, stepping closer. "It feels less empty." She laughed softly. "You live in the clouds and still feel empty?" He didn't smile. "More than you'd think." That's when she realized, for all his suits, his status, and his power, he was just as alone as she was, just in a different way. And for the first time, she let herself feel it. Not just the tension, not just the kindness, but the possibility. The rain came down hard that Thursday night, soaking the sidewalks and washing the Chicago skyline into a soft blur outside the penthouse windows. Lightning flickered over the river, but inside Suite 1742, it was quiet, still, almost too still. Ruby stood in the kitchen, toweling off her hair with a spare linen, trying to ignore the fact that she was dripping all over a tile floor, probably imported from Italy. "I didn't think you'd actually come," Cole said, leaning against the doorway in jeans and a gray hoodie, his usual armor of suits left somewhere in a corner. "I wasn't planning to, but then the train stopped running. Again." He offered a half smile and pointed to the table. "I made grilled cheese." She blinked. You cook? Well, I can burn bread and melt cheese. That counts in some states. It made her laugh, just a little. That surprised both of them. They sat at the table, no candles, no music, just two people who had been circling something neither of them wanted to name for too long. For a while, they just ate in silence, but it wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. Until he asked, "Do you ever wish your life looked different?" She didn't answer right away, just looked out the window, watching the traffic lights blink red and gold in the distance. "Every day," she said softly. "But wishing doesn't pay for meds or rent or shoes when your brother hits a growth spurt." He nodded slowly, but there was something different in his eyes. Not pity, just the kind of understanding she didn't expect from someone like him. "I used to think building a company would fill something in me, and I built the thing from nothing, scaled it, sold it, got rich. But, she asked. He looked at her then, really looked at her. "But I still eat alone most nights." That hit harder than she thought it would, because she knew that kind of quiet. Knew what it felt like to have everything look fine from the outside, but feel like you were always waiting for something real to show up. She pushed her plate back and leaned on her elbow. "Why me, Cole?" "What do you mean?" "You could be with anyone, any woman, in this building, on this block. You're," she gestured toward him, "you." "And you're you," he said simply. "That's not an answer." "I don't have a clever one. I just know that when you walk into the room, I pay attention. I didn't ask for that. It just happened." The air between them shifted, not in a dramatic way, but in that subtle, soul-deep way where you realize something you've been afraid to admit has already been true for a while. She stood, unsure what to do with the energy buzzing under her skin. "I should probably go," she said quietly. But he stood too. "Can I ask you something first?" She nodded. "If I wasn't a billionaire, if I didn't live here, if I worked in shipping or fixed air conditioners, would you still have come to dinner?" She blinked. "Is this a test?" "No," he said. "It's a real question." And the truth slipped out before she could filter it. "Yes, but I would have still been scared." "Why?" "Because I don't know what it means to let someone in, not when they have the power to change your life and disappear the next day." "I'm not going anywhere," he said, stepping closer. "You say that now," she whispered. He hesitated, then said, "Come here." She looked at him, unsure, but then she stepped forward, slowly, deliberately. And when he reached for her, it wasn't fast. It wasn't flashy. He just tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear and whispered, "I don't want to pretend anymore." Then he kissed her. Not like a man trying to claim something, but like someone asking a question he wasn't sure she'd answer. Soft, careful, almost hesitant. But she kissed him back, and everything unspoken between them poured out like breath. It wasn't about lust or loneliness. It was about recognition. Two people who'd been quietly waiting for someone to see them and finally did. They didn't rush it, didn't tear at clothes or stumble toward the bedroom. They just kissed like it mattered. Eventually, they ended up lying on the couch, his hoodie now on her shoulders, his hand wrapped around hers like it fit there naturally. Her head rested on his chest. No promises were made, no fairy tales whispered. But for the first time in a long time, neither of them felt like they had to carry everything alone. Sometime after midnight, Cole spoke again. His voice was soft, rough with sleep. She tilted her head. Why? Because I hated not knowing what was out there. The dark made everything feel bigger, scarier. She nodded slowly. Yeah, same. He kissed the top of her head. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Not in here. And maybe that was the real beginning. Not the grilled cheese, not the kiss, but that quiet, late-night confession. The moment two people from two totally different worlds finally let themselves admit they didn't want to face the dark alone anymore. The first headline showed up a week later. Billionaire Westbrook seen with housekeeper. New romance or just room service? The photo was blurry, taken from across the hotel lobby. Ruby handing Cole a tray of coffee, both of them smiling. A moment that felt private, pulled out into a world that didn't care who got hurt. She saw it while waiting in line at CVS, right between a magazine cover about a royal baby and a tabloid claiming aliens live in Miami. She didn't buy it. She didn't have to. The damage had already been done. Back at the Chandler Grand, whispers followed her like static. The same people who used to ignore her now stared too long. Some smirked, others looked away like she was something they shouldn't touch. She's got him wrapped around her finger, one concierge muttered when they thought she couldn't hear. Smart girl, sleep your way into a penthouse. Ruby wanted to disappear. Not because what they said was true, but because part of her feared they'd always think it was. She told herself it didn't matter, that she didn't need their approval, but it did matter. It always had. By the time her shift ended, she was already halfway to the elevator when Cole appeared at the end of the hallway. Don't go, he said, almost breathless. I saw the article. I didn't know they were watching. She kept her voice even. You didn't think they would? I didn't care. Well, I do. She snapped and instantly regretted it. He stepped closer. Let me fix this. You can't fix people whispering when I walk into a room. You can't undo the fact that I'm the hotel girl. You can't. He gently took her wrist. Hey, look at me. She did. This thing between us, whatever it is, I don't want to hide it. I'm not ashamed of you. She blinked back the tears burning in her eyes. That's not the problem, Cole. I'm not ashamed either. I'm scared. Of what? That I'm just a phase for you. That one day you wake up and decide you're done explaining me. He went quiet. And in that silence, everything she feared settled like dust between them. 2 days later, she was called to the manager's office, not by her supervisor, by someone higher. When she walked in, a woman in a white cashmere coat was already sitting by the window, sipping tea like she owned the room. She didn't need to introduce herself. Margot Westbrook, Cole's mother. Polished, graceful, and unmistakably rich. She looked Ruby up and down with eyes that didn't blink. Sit, she said. Ruby stayed standing. I know what you're doing, Margot said, setting her cup down. And I know you think this is some kind of fairy tale, but trust me, this ends badly. Ruby clenched her fist at her sides. I'm not asking for anything from your son. Of course you are. You're asking for access to a life that was never yours. He doesn't belong in your world, and you don't belong in his. Ruby exhaled slowly, trying not to let her voice shake. I've never asked him for money or gifts or favors. He comes to me. Margot's voice sharpened. Then do the right thing. Let him go before you drag him down. She pulled a white envelope from her bag and slid it across the desk. Enough for you to move. Start fresh, quietly. Ruby didn't touch it. I came here to clean rooms, not to be bought like furniture. Margot leaned back. Dignity is such a pretty word until the bills show up. Ruby picked up the envelope, then, slowly, deliberately, dropped it into the trash can beside the chair. I don't want your money. I want my peace. And with that, she walked out. That night, she didn't go home. She went to the hospital. Mason was asleep, breathing softly in the small recovery room. He'd had a bad flare-up that week, and they were keeping him overnight just to be safe. She sat beside him, brushing a curl from his forehead, wondering how something as soft and quiet as love could suddenly feel so heavy. When the nurse offered to bring her a blanket, Ruby smiled and said, "No, thank you," even though her whole body was tired. That was the moment she decided. She wouldn't be anyone's project, not a social experiment, not a mistake in the tabloids. She'd leave on her own terms. Cole woke to silence. No texts, no morning tray, no knock on the door. At first he thought maybe her shift changed. Maybe she had the day off. But by noon, he called the front desk, asked to speak with Ruby Moore. There was a pause. Then, "I'm sorry, Mr. Westbrook. She turned in her badge last night." The breath left his chest in one tight, hard exhale. He called her phone, disconnected. Went down to the break room, empty. He searched her name on social media. Nothing public. It was like she'd vanished, the way only someone who'd learned how to protect herself could. 3 weeks passed. Cole canceled 2 meetings, ignored 4 investor calls. His team panicked. He didn't care. He kept the suite, still tipping the staff extra, still watching the door every time it knocked, even though it was never her. Sometimes he sat by the window with the lights off, just waiting to hear her voice again. Once, he found one of her sticky notes in a drawer. "Don't forget to breathe today," smiley face. And he kept it tucked in his wallet like a relic. Toby, his best friend and CFO, finally cornered him on the rooftop. "Dude, you've tanked 2 presentations and forgot your mom's gala RSVP." Cole didn't look up. She left. "Yeah, and?" "I think I broke her." "No," Toby said. "I think she broke free. You made her feel like she had to." Cole clenched his jaw. "I should have protected her." "You tried," Toby said, "but sometimes love means knowing when to follow, not lead." A week later, Cole sat in his car outside a small community clinic on the south side. One of the nurses had left a voicemail. "Hey, a Miss Moore volunteers here. Thought you'd want to know." He almost didn't believe it until he saw her through the window. Ruby, hair pulled into a bun, laughing with a young girl over a stack of reading flashcards. Same smile, same calm. Still wearing his old hoodie, faded now, the sleeves rolled up. He didn't go in, not yet. He just watched, hands still on the steering wheel, heart pounding like he'd just landed on another planet. For the first time in weeks, he felt something close to hope. It had been exactly 49 days since Ruby walked out of the Chandler Hotel. She wasn't counting, not really. But some nights, when the clinic's lights dimmed and Mason had finally stopped coughing in his sleep, she'd catch herself thinking about that room, that city view, that man, the way he used to watch her like she was the only part of his life that felt real. She didn't miss the sweet or the free coffee. She missed him. But she also knew she had to find herself without him first. She had to know she could build something real on her own, not just in the shadow of someone powerful. So she taught reading classes, helped a mom fill out Medicaid forms, took Mason to free asthma education nights at the community center. She stopped checking the tabloids. What she didn't know was that across the city, Cole hadn't moved on either. He still stayed in Suite 1742, refused to let anyone else clean it, walked past the lemon-scented wipes on the counter, and thought about her hands. Still carried her sticky note in his wallet like it was scripture. He hadn't shown up at any red carpet events, hadn't entertained another woman. He'd gone quiet. Until the night of the Westbrook Foundation Gala. A black tie event, hundreds of donors, the ballroom at the Chandler Grand packed with politicians, CEOs, and journalists, all expecting another Cole Westbrook keynote speech about tech and capital and innovation. But he didn't give them that. He stepped on stage in a classic navy tux, adjusted the mic, and looked out at the crowd like he was seeing through it. "I've spent a lot of my life trying to be the loudest guy in the room," he said, "and somewhere along the way, I stopped listening." There were murmurs. He didn't care. Then I met someone who reminded me that real strength doesn't shout. It shows up, quietly, every single day, even when no one claps. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She just wanted to do the right thing. And somewhere in between coffee trays and sticky notes, she changed me. The room held its breath. He continued, "I lost her because I didn't know how to fight for her the right way. But I'm standing here tonight because I still believe in second chances. And if she's listening, Ruby, if you're out there, come home." The applause didn't come right away. Just silence. Pure, charged silence. Until the back doors of the ballroom opened, and there she was. In a simple navy dress that hugged her in all the right ways. No diamonds, no makeup tutorials, just her. Real, steady, holding Mason's hand. Cole stepped down from the stage, eyes locked on hers. She didn't say anything, just walked straight up to him. Mason let go of her hand and stepped to the side, watching with the wide eyes of a kid who finally saw his sister smile for real. "You didn't have to say all that," Ruby whispered. "I did. You deserved to hear it in a room full of people who needed to know exactly who you are." She looked down, then back up. "You sure about this?" "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." And with that, he reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small box, and opened it slowly. Not a huge diamond, not some flashy rock, just a silver band engraved with 1742 on the inside. The room was silent again. But Ruby didn't need an audience. She took the ring gently, slid it on her finger, and whispered, "You took your time." He smiled. "You were worth every second." Then he leaned in, kissed him once, soft, sure, and the ballroom erupted in applause. 3 months later, Cole moved out of the penthouse. He bought a modest townhouse closer to the clinic, where Mason had a backyard to play in and Ruby had a kitchen she actually liked. They ate takeout on the floor the first night, and he told her she looked better in sweats than in any ball gown. She said, "That's good, because this is what you're getting for life." He said, "Perfect." They didn't need cameras or headlines. They just needed the quiet kind of love that showed up with sticky notes, grilled cheese, and stormy nights. The kind that whispered, "I see you. I choose you," over and over again. And somehow, that was more than enough. True love doesn't always arrive with perfect timing or glittering promises. Sometimes it walks in quietly, through exhaustion and honesty, asking only to be seen for who it really is. Room 1742 reminds us that love isn't about status or headlines. It's about choosing someone again and again, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's hard. When two people strip away fear and pride and meet each other at their most vulnerable, something lasting is born. Because in the end, real love isn't loud. It's steady. And like we say in the States, the heart wants what it wants. If this story touched something in you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt a love that crossed lines or came unexpectedly? Don't forget to like the video if you believe in this kind of deep, unconditional connection, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss another heartfelt love story. Wherever you are in your journey, I hope love finds you, not in perfection, but in truth.